Hi, I'm Amy, your tour guide for tonight's episode of Murderous, Mysterious, and Macabre. And tonight I'll be telling my co-hosts, Amber and Joe, and all of you about Charles Howard Schmid, the Pied Piper of Tucson.
Schmid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tangent literally immediately. Sorry about it. I've been needing a kind of like a comfort show to watch at nights. So I've been playing Stardew Valley and watching New Girl. And I'm finally watching the whole of it, and I'm not gonna lie, every single time you mention his name, I'm going to picture Schmidt. It's only like a little off, and
oh no, please don't, because I love Schmidt, and I don't want to picture him as a murderer. So please don't do that.
That's fair. I don't know. Call Me the Pied Piper seems like a Schmidt line. I don't know.
It really does.
That feels like a Deuce Jar moment, so.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, reminder, you can find content warnings for this episode in the description below. So yes, Pied Piper of Tucson. This gentleman has actually been featured in several books and short stories. Probably the most famous is a short story called Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? By Joyce Carol Oates. It's a story that I actually read when I was in college and was very weirded out by, very freaked out by the descriptions that she has in there. And it was influenced by this gentleman. And so as I was researching him, I was just remembering it and remember getting a very visceral reaction as I read this story. So I recommend reading it if you want to do a little it's not based on, it's not talking about him specifically, but it's based on him and the murders that he committed. So,
okay.
Also a book called The Tucson Murders by John Gilmore, and several movies. The Todd Killings in 1971, Smooth Talk 1985, Deadbeat in 1994, and The Lost in 2005. So
I don't think I've seen any of those movies.
I know, and normally I'm pretty familiar with.
We watch a lot of horror.
Yeah. Especially I love a true crime.
Yeah, so I have not seen any of them either. I have read, like I said, the short story, but as early as 2005. So obviously people are still fascinated by this guy, is all I'm going to say, is he's a pretty fascinating character.
I recall the name the Pied Piper being related somewhere in Tucson, but I don't know the story. So I'm excited.
I literally know none of this. I've actually never even read that short story by Joyce Carol Oates. So now I'm just I'm kind of surprised because I feel granted, I'm usually more tuned into a paranormal story setting, but I feel like I know my fair share of true crime things too. And I'm actually very interested because I think I know absolutely nothing about this man.
Yeah.
This will be fun.
or horrible.
Fun.
Exactly.
Fun enough. Yay.
So I think that's my first thing with I don't know about, I'm gonna assume Joe maybe knows more, but I don't know about you guys, but I've been kind of through Tucson. I've never really
you're not missing anything.
Or seen it extensively.
Absolutely not.
The only
don't know
things anything
really with Tucson are U of A campus, which again, unless you're a college student, not much there. They do have a zoo. It is fairly small, but they have a really great elephant exhibit that's huge and has this pool with glass. You can watch them as they're swimming in the pool. It's really cool. And then other than that, it's Mexican restaurants. So you're not missing much not going to Tucson.
I don't think I've even ever driven through Tucson. I don't know that I've gone that far south in Arizona yet. So
I was trying to think of like, no, there are times you and I have gone south for like road trips. I'm like, no, actually, we
but
didn't
never
get
that
to Tucson.
far. Yeah,
We literally like, we've gone further than Tucson, but we always like go around it. So
Yeah, you like skirt around it all the time. Yeah.
So as far as I know, I don't even know that Tucson really exists. Like as far as my frame of reference,
it's an illusion.
it's not quite there. Yeah.
So that's been always my kind of take on it as well. And I mean, first of all, it's probably pretty ignorant. I should probably have been there by now. I've been in this state long enough. But also, this background here is going to kind of play into this story a little bit. You guys are going to kind of understand a little bit as I try to flesh out why things happen the way they happen, theoretically, supposedly. So, okay, you guys have the images. You can look at the first one now. This is our friend Charles Schmid. He was born July 8th, 1942, right there in Tucson, to a single mother, immediately given up for adoption. So the mother was unwed. He was adopted by Charles and Catherine Schmid. They were actually quite successful in Tucson. They owned and operated Hillcrest Nursing Home, which I looked into.
Okay.
I can't find that it's still standing. I can't really find anything about it. But it was apparently a very successful nursing home in the 50s, 60s, around that time in Tucson. He worked there with his parents, kind of did odd jobs. And for that, his parents like paid rent on his home. He had his own little home and they paid the rent on it and gave him about $300 a month for doing the work there at the nursing home. Which
the fucking 50s and 60s, man.
I know. Which I looked up is the equivalent of about $3,000 a month in today's money.
Good God.
That's wild.
He was kind of a little
less than what we make a month now.
Yeah.
Like, good God.
Yeah, depending if you're doing before or after taxes. Yeah, that's not a small amount of money. This guy though, like, I mean, just the look on his face, like he's got con man vibes. Like I don't doubt for a second.
Yes, he does.
He could weasel his way into
that fucking little like eyebrow thing he's got going on too, where it's like the
pursed lip to the
Yeah. You guys are 100% getting the right vibes off of him right away. Like he made that kind of money doing odd jobs basically at this nursing home, but he also again did not pay his rent. His parents paid it. Like
mommy and daddy's help. Yeah.
Yeah. He basically like bought fast cars and motorcycles and spent his money. Like that's all this guy did.
Fucking dudes, man.
Yeah.
Like
dudes that have parents with money are like the worst fucking
it's so easy.
Narcissistic assholes.
Yes.
Not to like stereotype all of them because I'm sure not all of them are horrible, but at the same, I've met way too many that are just.
There's a trend among narcissistic like assholes where they have bitch money. Yeah. No, it's just funny. It reminds me of that like meme. Have you guys seen that meme where it's like, owning a house in today's market is so easy if you just follow these simple steps. Like I brew my coffee at home. I don't get avocado toast. I got a $10,000 loan from my daddy because I'm daddy's special boy.
Yeah.
I pick up an extra shift when I can.
My parents don't have $10,000 to loan me to buy a fucking house, you piece of shit.
But those are his vibes.
Millennials are ruining the economy because they're not buying napkins anymore. Like
that's it.
Fuck off.
Yeah. I can't afford Applebee's and napkins and fabric softener. So I guess it's all my fault. Sorry, Gen Z.
Who even knows how to use fabric softener anymore? That's my question.
I think it's all bullshit. They're like get a little wool ball. Little wool ball and dry it. That's all you need. Reusable,
I use those.
Sustainable.
They're the best.
They're the best.
You can add like a few drops of like essential oils if like you really wanted to smell fancy.
Yes.
But like,
yep, I'm a fan.
Me some eucalyptus oil.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, I go
I'm a lavender
straight
bitch
lavender
myself, yeah.
because
Yeah.
Lavender's the choice for my
Yes.
bedding. Eucalyptus
Oh,
for
nice.
everything else.
I do have like a
Yeah.
lovely little lavender spray that like, especially if I'm like super stressed, I'm like, I'm gonna douse my entire bed in this so that like I will finally achieve calm. And I do
how's
that because
working for you?
well, you know, I'm not making $3,000 a month doing occasional odd jobs. So the stress is still there. And I just keep racking up lavender bills, which is probably why I'm running out of time.
Yeah, the lavender is what's doing you
It's-
in.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
It's not the Starbucks. It's not the avocado toast. It's 100% the lavender
It's
essential
the
oil.
lavender for sure.
Lavender,
if I wanted,
always.
If I wanted my bed to be like a soothing cocoon that I don't want to leave, I would be spraying gin and tonic all over my bed.
That's another route. I like the thought process.
I'll just make myself feel at home here. Where's my gin and tonic? So yeah.
Just have a little
All right,
bedside bar right there.
Yep.
Oh my god, that's the dream for sure. For sure.
One day.
Okay.
One day.
We've gone way off the rails. Please.
Way off the
topic.
rails.
Way.
All right, back to our
Oops.
friend Charles Schmid. Okay, so yes, he was a kept little mama's boy essentially. He was actually, people described him as like really intelligent, good looking, extremely charismatic to like just adults, people his own age. Everybody just thought he was super charismatic. He wasn't a great student, but he was really good at gymnastics. So he actually led his high school to a state championship his junior year in high school in gymnastics. But then he ended up having to drop out his senior year because he got suspended for stealing tools from the welding class.
I was going to say injury, you know, like that's where it all fucked up. But no, he was fucking stealing.
No.
Good
No,
God.
no.
Yeah, you know,
Sticky
those
fingers
rich
can't stop
kids that
himself.
are just like, I don't really need this crap, but I'm dead inside, so I'm going to do this and see if I feel
I need to
something.
feel
alive.
something.
Yeah. That's pretty much where we're at by the time we hit senior in high school with this guy. Yeah.
God.
I mean, teenagers are psychopaths sometimes.
Yeah,
so.
true.
For sure. Like, there's something not going on with most teenagers and with this guy especially. So yeah, let's, yeah. All right. So social life. He was super, super popular in Tucson with the teenagers.
That doesn't sound like it ends well.
Yeah, this is actually kind of like after he's left high school, not really graduated,
There it
but
is.
just left. He's one of those guys that just can't seem to leave high school. You know what I mean? Like
The fucking 25-year-old dating a sophomore. Yeah.
yes, we all knew those
Yes.
guys that were like 24, 25, hanging out at all the high school parties. And you definitely had this group of mostly girls or some other guys that were like, this is weird. I'm staying away from this guy. Like, this isn't right. But then you always wondered about the people who didn't get those same vibes and they like worshipped and idolized these guys. And you were like, how do you not see how creepy that is? Yeah.
Oh.
So like he was 100% one of those guys. And apparently there's not a lot of people who caught the ick factor from him. All these younger, impressionable high school kids.
Because he's a rich boy
like,
and he could provide them with alcohol and probably other drugs. Like,
they adored
and especially
him.
if he's like charming, like if you're that con man type, like you're very charming, and that's
it's giving
easy
Ted
'cause-
Bundy.
Well, yeah, and like, or even just fucking Edward Cullen. Like, it's any of those like teenage novels where it's like, oh, I am so special, and like an older guy is gonna notice me because I'm special, and like a charming man could play into that way
so quick,
easily.
So quick.
So
yeah. So he was known as Smitty around town. Everybody called him Smitty.
That's not
Smitty. Yeah.
And even though he was super just like well liked by everybody, he was actually kind of a loner. Like I kind of picture just like a shark. Like he's in there in the pool of fish, but he's just trolling the whole time by himself. Like he's only after what he's after. Like I feel like that charm is very surface probably for this guy, and he's able to quickly win people over, but he doesn't really have connections with people. It's all very surface level for this guy. He's actually only got maybe 3 friends, like his whole life. He's got 3 people that he would actually call a friend. And they were all kind of like him, just kind of a little bit iffy, a little bit outcasty.
If it weren't for the hanging out with teenagers when you are no longer a teen, that's a vibe that I could actually get with, of people that are like so cool that others want to know them and hang out with them, but they're like, you're just not really for me. I'd just rather hang out and just chill with a couple of people I know really well. That would be fine. It's the hanging out with fucking teenagers. That just...
Well, yes, and like that, especially when it's like, and he dropped out, so it's even almost understandable into like, I would say, especially back in that time, like even understandable into like about 20, like when you would be in college, but like you're still seniors around 18,
you
19,
maybe, like, still have
you
friends.
Feel like you missed out on that last year, but like once you're reaching like 25, dude, like you are past time to move on. Like that's a little
you need to be done.
Yeah. You've needed to be done, so.
He definitely, like, even though he's kind of a loner, like, he would seek people out. Like, he would throw parties at his house, and then all these teenagers would come over. And so, like, he wanted to be surrounded by people.
Red flag.
He just didn't want to engage deeply with them, let's say. And he was known for casually dating multiple girls at the same time. And, of course, they were all underage girls.
I was going to say multiple teenage girls. Probably.
Because he's a fucking creep.
Yeah. At one point, he bought some fake engagement rings so that he was engaged to 2 girls simultaneously at the same time. When one of them was only 15 years old. So,
what is wrong with men?
Yes.
Because that shit's still going on today. I had quite a few friends or acquaintances in high school that got pregnant by guys that were like 23, 24. Like, what are you gonna do with like the baby and with the guy? And like, he's so much older than you. Like, oh, we're engaged. A year later after they've had the kid, oh, he's a fucking asshole. I don't want anything to do with him, and I don't want my kid anywhere near him. Like, you shouldn't have in the first place.
There were red
flags. Oh my
God. Yeah. So feeding into his social life, and besides the parties, his big thing, and you guys can pull up your second picture now.
All right.
He hung out at the high school, or he cruised down. It's called Speedway Boulevard in Tucson.
Okay.
It's basically the main strip, and he would cruise down here and pick up teenage girls and take them. They'd all go into the desert and go drinking together. That picture is this.
Don't go drinking in the desert. Yeah. Don't do it.
Not good. That's never good. That picture is Speedway Boulevard in the late 60s, early 70s. And it was from a article in Life magazine where it was referenced as the ugliest street in America.
You don't say.
Hilarious. No, it's like, it looks, I mean, yes, it's like all billboards. It's like mostly car parks.
Trash.
It's like
it's trash.
Not great. But no, let's just throw a little PSA out here for anybody listening. Like, if anybody is ever like, hey, you want to go drinking in the desert? Like, your response is
do it.
No, and just scream.
The only time that I think it's acceptable is if it's like a lake trip out in the desert somewhere and you're camping or something. That makes a little bit more sense.
But
if you're randomly going, and I say this with all sincerity, because again, I knew way too many girls. Again, I understand they probably did not have very good home lives, and it's not an excuse for these guys to have taken advantage of them, but I can see where they were able to like be swayed. Like they'd just go out and they'd randomly drive to somewhere in the desert, nowhere fun, on like a random Thursday and just fucking drink with like fucking absolute vodka, the worst fucking shit, and get absolutely hammered. It's like, that's not fucking safe. Especially when half the guys had like guns and wanted to show them off and shoot them in the desert. Like,
well, and like I'm just gonna say too is like there is a phrasing thing. Like I'm gonna go with, you know, somebody invites you. First of all, don't go camping with people you barely know. Like also red flags. But if someone's like, hey, do you want to go up to the lake, or hey, do you want to go camping? Those are normal things to ask somebody. Hey, do you want to go drinking in the desert? Like that is not a normal thing. That is serial killer behavior. Do not do.
So, So this is what leads us into why he was so popular with the younger people, is because there just wasn't anything going on in Tucson in 1960.
It's Tucson. There's literally nothing ever happening.
There is nothing to do. There is nowhere to go. There is nothing to entertain teenagers. Even teenagers who are able to drive and have cars or are able to borrow cars. Where are they going to go? Like their parents aren't going to say, yeah, you could drive 2+ hours to Phoenix to where there's more stuff to do. Like they were stuck, and there was, I mean, you saw the picture. There was nothing there. There was nothing to do. And here comes this guy who's got money and he's very charismatic and he wants to be around them and spend time with them. And he was like catnip to these teenagers in Tucson at this time. Like there was nothing else like him there, and they were just enthralled with him. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like one of those things too. Cause Tucson is like so isolated, and a lot of smaller towns, I know my husband is from the Midwest, as you guys know, and listeners might not, but a lot of smaller towns. Yeah, well, small towns
farm boy,
where it's like the point is like they're isolated. Like it's
there's nothing else to do.
The valley, like everything's overlapped, so if nothing's happening we have like a big city, so lots of like suburbs, like little other cities that are suburbs basically of our bigger city. But like if you're in a small town, like you're usually your town and then isolation around you. So it's like, oh, there's just nothing.
And still like everybody knows everybody. But Tucson it's boring and there's not a lot to do, but it's expansive. It didn't build upwards, it built outwards. So there's a lot of people, but there's nothing to do. And I think that's why it's become such a prominent like college town. Somehow ASU is still like worse off than them in terms of like crime rates and STDs and whatnot. But it's a big like party town essentially.
Because there's nothing else to do.
There's nothing else to do. You're just doing classes and drinking. That's like that's the life there.
Yep. And apparently it was in the 1960s as well. So it
hasn't changed.
Nothing has
that
changed.
much.
Yep.
No one wants to be in Tucson.
Hopefully people aren't getting taken out into the desert and, murdered, but still pretty similar all in all. Okay, so I'm going to read this description to you guys, and you can't look at the next picture until I tell you to, because I want you to picture him in your head first and then see him. Okay. So the first thing you have to know about him is he just has these striking blue eyes. So that is what all the teenage girls would talk about. It's just like, oh, his eyes. Like he just had these beautiful blue eyes. He, however, was 5'3" tall.
Oh God, he's got short guy complex.
Tiny.
Like
he was
love
tiny.
A short king when they don't have fucking issues. But some of them have the worst fucking complex.
Absolutely. Like he was good looking enough and he was charismatic enough. He probably could have wrote it out, but he had a complex. So he stuffed like old rags and crushed tin cans like 3 or 4 inches high so that he would look taller. Like in his boots, he'd wear these like
I thought he was shoving them somewhere else.
No, like in the bottom of his cowboy boots so that he would look taller.
Makeshift.
Cowboy boots are already healed.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Like see, and that's
the funny thing is,
like, oh man.
Yeah. Like he couldn't walk. And the thing about it is he couldn't walk. Like it made him walk funny. He'd stumble around. He'd look really clumsy. Because you can't, I mean, it's like, they're not even solid lifts. It's just like all this loose stuff in the bottom of his boots trying to make him look
just constantly walking over garbage to try and look taller. When like a little bit of confidence goes a long way, especially because like I am shorter than 5'3". So for someone like me, like 5'3", I'm like, oh, you're still taller than me. Like,
yeah, you're still taller than me, but I'll fucking fight you. That's your attitude, and I love it.
That is my attitude most of the time. But I'm just saying, like, for most girls, like, I know that there is, like, a stigma sometimes about, like, girls dating people shorter than them. But 5'3" is not, like... It's not at a point where nobody would be shorter than him. Yeah. And I'm sure, like, some good posture and, like, a little bit of confidence could make you feel like a 5'5" to most people. So,
and I mean, and plus, like, it didn't seem like he was hurting for the ladies. Yeah. So I'm not sure why he did it. Yeah.
I mean, especially when you're hanging out with all the fucking teenage girls, like, obviously
you're about to be
they're
taller
enamored
than that.
with you.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be the same reason why he's like stealing welding equipment, getting kicked out of school. Like, it's just like.
I'm gonna feel like a man.
Well, just something powerful, where it's just like I feel like there's something off or empty, and so I've just gotta start grasping at things to fill the void.
Let me try this. Let me try this.
It's that toxic masculinity. I'm not the big, giant, beefy dude, so I've got to have something else that makes me look tough. And apparently, that's like money, hanging out with younger people that just clamor over you, and fucking.
Tin cans
whatever
in your
other
cowboy
shit.
boots.
Yeah, like
I mean, and like also that lovely trait of like, oh no, I could never be introspective and look inwards to see if I need to work on something in myself. No,
am I the problem?
No, it's not. It's these shoes, and I just need tin cans. Like, that's the problem.
All right, so blue eyes. 5'3", tiny little guy. He dyed his hair jet black. He idolized Elvis Presley. He was just fascinated with Elvis Presley. So he dyed his hair jet black to look like him, which, by the way, not sure if y'all knew this, but Elvis Presley dyed his hair black. He's not a natural dark hair.
I did know that.
He's got dirty blonde hair in real life.
Yep.
And
he was not a jet black person.
Yeah, he idolized Dean Martin, who has black hair. And so Elvis dyed his hair black to look like Dean Martin, and this guy dyed his hair black to look like Elvis Presley. So
that's so funny. Oh, man.
Dean Martin is the granddaddy cool guy, I guess, that everybody wants to be like.
Until we find the next link in the chain. Like, who does Dean Martin idolize? That's what I
exactly.
How far back
he was part of the Rat Pack, so he probably didn't idolize anybody. He was
that's true.
Like,
he didn't need to.
Yeah,
like an up and comer of celebrity.
Yeah. He is what this Schmidt guy was missing, is like the self-confidence of like, oh no, it's fine, I know I'm cool. Like
yeah, so he would dye his hair black and purposely try to, you know how like Elvis had kind of like droopy, like squinty kind of eyes, he would like do that with his eyes. Like he would basically try to make himself look as much like Elvis as he could.
How do you do that with your eyes?
He just trained his eyes. His eyes.
Like he just went like this constantly until they just stayed that way.
Like he trained himself to hold his face so his eyes look like slack all the time. You know what I mean? And
so like doing the siren eyes.
Yeah. Like he put a lot of work into this image that he crafted in his head that he wanted to portray. Another thing he did was wore pancake makeup. I don't know. You guys have been in theater stuff, right? You know what pancake makeup? It's some thick ass makeup.
Yeah.
He wanted to look more tan than he was. So he would put pancake makeup on every day that was like a darker shade than his skin so that he would look more tan. And then he would also draw a mole on his cheek that he didn't actually have because he thought it made him look tougher. So now you ladies can look at the third picture now that I've painted this image for you.
You painted it for us.
Oh, God.
Yes. Yeah.
That looks like fucking skin cancer.
Honey. Okay, but
Okay.
like the first picture is him too, right?
Hell?
Yes.
I prefer
So
the first picture.
Well,
he looks slimy in both, but
yeah. Well, he looks like a con man in the first one, but I could see the appeal. Like he doesn't look unattractive in the first one.
Yes.
I can see the like,
What?
oh, this man pulls ladies.
fucking high school girl looked at this and said, "That's the guy I want to fuck. I want to get engaged to him at 15 years old."
It doesn't look like a mole. That looks like
it looks like skin cancer.
Yeah.
Like he's got fucking gangrene into his cheek.
Yeah.
What is going on with his nose?
Okay, I'll get to that next. But the first picture is him when he's cleaned up for court, by the way. That's like, oh, I need to make myself look as clean and human as possible. That's what he would look like if he didn't do all this crazy stuff, essentially. So the thing with the nose, he also loved to make up stories. So, like, it wasn't just
that
physical.
tracks. Yeah.
He would just make up stories, like, literally nonstop. That
Oh, I broke my nose, man. I got into this fight,
and I was...
Yeah,
so I won, but he broke it, so I gotta wear this weird splint thing on it.
That's exactly what it was, is he got into a fight and broke his nose. And this is a cast that a doctor put on for him, even though it's...
Doctors don't do goddamn casts!
Yeah,
for sure.
Not for a fucking nose!
Exactly.
Well, and also that looks like a...
It looks like fucking silly putty.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Yes. It was... He basically took, like, plaster and made his own nose cast and wore it around for just, like, a couple months so that people would feel bad for him because he got his nose broken in a fight.
That's what he stole from the fucking tool shed in high school and just kept stocked up, apparently, to continuously
just
have a fucking nose cast.
Dude, I still can't get over that mole. Like, it's so bad. And, like, he's doing it
so bad.
Like, he looks...
I know.
Like, in that... Yeah, it's just wild. It's just, like, literally, this boy
and with the button-down shirt with, like, the stains of whatever that white shit is on it, right? That just, you look so goddamn crazy.
You look crazy. He looks insane.
He looks crazy. But, yeah, so some of his other favorite lies to tell were that crazy walk he got from piling all that stuff in his boots was the result of leg injuries because of a fight he got in with mafia people.
Oh yeah, because the mafia's in fucking Tucson.
Yeah. Also, he's a member of Hell's Angels.
For sure.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And that
first of all, they'd kill you.
Yeah. And that he ran drugs across the desert. Those were his big lies. He would tell the teenage girls to impress them.
That's, again, like, I get where the teenage mind is so malleable and so easily impressionable, especially when you're in a boring town and maybe you have, like, a really shitty family life. It's like, that was my grandma's life, and we all know how she ended up. Like, super religious fucking indoctrination shit that happened for her. But, like, that just, oh my God. This is when she was, like, a fucking teenager. And she lived in Tucson.
See, maybe she knew him.
Oh, God.
You're going to have to do a follow-up story for us, Joe.
Yes,
you're going to have to do a follow-up.
I can't. She's not talking to me because I
oh, damn it.
lived out of wedlock with a guy for 2 years and then broke up with him because, you know, how dare I leave a wonderful religious man. So, story for another time.
Yeah. No. Somebody in your family's talking to her. We'll get the deets.
Someone will tell me. I will figure it out.
You knew him. We'll do a circle back.
I'm going to the gym with my brother tomorrow. He still talks to her.
I'll
fucking get him to shake her down for me.
We need to know.
I love it. So excited. All right, so let's get on to the nitty gritty of my friend Charles Schmid. His first murder was a gal named, I think it's Alleen, Alleen.
Alleen.
Yeah.
Alleen Rowe.
Maybe it's supposed to be an Eileen, but like Alleen.
Really weird fucking spelling, but I think Alleen.
I'm going with Alleen. On May 31st, 1964, her mother, Norma, who was a nurse, hung out with her that evening, sent her off to bed, checked in on her. She seemed to be asleep, and her mom left. She worked the night shift in Tucson as a nurse. And that's the last time she ever saw her. Apparently, she had started to hang out with a friend named Mary French. She lived very close to her. And Mary French happened to be dating Charles Schmidt at the time.
Of course.
Yeah. And on May 31st, Mary and Charles and their friend John Saunders were hanging out. And Charles had been stating for the past couple days that he wanted to kill a girl. He wanted to kill a girl. He thought he could get away with it. He really needed to know if he could get, like, he was obsessing over it. Like, I want to kill somebody. I want to see if I can get away with it. And basically just badgered Mary French to invite Aline Rowe out to come on a double date with them.
No.
And Mary did, and they drove out to the desert, where Charles then sent Mary and his friend John back to the car. And while they were going back to the car, he beat her over the head with a large rock until she died. So,
that poor girl.
She was 15 years old.
Oh my God.
No.
Yeah, 15 years old. And his girlfriend helped lure this girl out knowing what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
His friend knew what would happen. And his friend helped him bury the body there in the desert where she was murdered.
Okay, so because I'm going to say, I know we're going to talk about how much of a dirtbag this guy is, but also fuck these other two.
Yeah.
Right?
Seriously.
Like, this person's telling you all this shit, and you're going to be like, yeah, I'll help you lure a 15-year-old out, instead of being like, I will report you to the police.
That's the thing, too.
Fuck?
Like, this poor Mary girl was also probably, like, brainwashed and abused by these guys to, like, just do what they wanted to get the attention she needed or sought because she wasn't getting it elsewhere, like at home. Or she just, like, fell in with them and they ended up being assholes and she couldn't get out. Like, there is some blame to be placed on her because she did help, but at the same time, like, a lot of times that sort of thing that occurs is, like, they felt they had no other choice. It was either they lure someone else in or they themselves were the ones that got murdered.
I don't know. Like, it's...
Yeah.
I'm going to stick to fuck this girl, honestly, because that is true. They're not wrong, but there's also a lot, like, I don't think that she's blameless because she's a woman. Like, it's one of those things
that's
like,
fair.
She knew to some extent what she was doing. She had an opportunity to tell anybody. And
again, it's also teenage girls, and sometimes teenage girls are just the fucking worst.
It's one of those things where it's just like, I've known a lot of teenage girls too who, maybe she was scared, but I've known a lot of teenage girls who will do fucked things for attention and
because they want to impress those people.
That's I don't think she should get a pass. So
it could go either way. I don't know that we have that information at this point, but also to that point, again, fucking men. Not just men, because women will do it sometimes too, but more often men, because because society, again, indoctrinates them into having this sort of power trip that they have of, like, I can say this shit and get away with it because no one's ever going to take me seriously, or I'm a guy, so, like, this is just normal stuff that guys say. Like, we're all violent towards women. We all have these urges, just I acted on them. Like, no, you don't. No, guys, if you hear something or see something, fucking say something. Hold your boys accountable.
Literally. Yeah. And, like, it's like, it's to a point too where it's like, you have to speak up. Like, there is no reason why you guys, they were both his friend and his girlfriend, like, equally, I hope they were held accountable as accomplices because you lured someone out. Like, that was not, I was scared in a moment.
15-year-old
that was
girl
intentional, and
who doesn't know any fucking better and trusted
you can go die in a pit. So
Yeah.
sorry about it.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say.
So by all accounts, Mary French was quite a quiet, homely, not beautiful girl. And everybody that was a teenager just about loved this guy. He was like a god in this town. And so
she was getting attention from him.
my
so
guess
obviously,
is
I need to live up to his standards.
Yes. I will lose his attention if I don't do this for him, was probably the impetus for her to do what she did and play her part in it. It said, said, or by everybody else's accounts, she went back to the car and refused to leave the car. She heard the screaming. She flipped out. She was basically in the car in shock, like just trying to disassociate
again, that's where
herself.
Good, you deserve
they
that
need
from
to
her,
hold
frankly.
themselves
Like,
accountable
sorry,
a little
you
bit.
do.
Like, you did do this, but at the same time, like, to what end did they feel they had to? Like, maybe she didn't necessarily feel like she'd be in danger,
Like
but she definitely felt like she needed to do something, or she was going to lose attention and people were going to start saying things about her. And high school's fucking hard, guys. People sucked. They still suck in high school.
I'm just saying.
That's fair. It's harder if you're dead, but
I
not to play devil's advocate for this girl, but
yeah. I'm not.
I totally get
for her.
I think she definitely felt guilt. I just think she felt maybe pressured knowing that piece of information. Again, not excusing what she did, but I could definitely see where it was like I needed to do this because that's the only way that I can move forward type of deal.
Yeah.
For whatever fucking reason she had.
I get what you're saying. Like you're not condoning her motives. You're just saying you can visualize her motives. Which is like, I mean, part of it. It's just it's always frustrating to see because it's like there is.
It's so easy to go tattle, essentially. Go snitch. Like you get
mom.
Everyone says you're going to get a bad rap for doing it, but at the same time, what's going to happen if you get fucking tried as an accomplice for murder? Which one's worse?
There it is.
Exactly.
And it's like, I mean, obviously, he is the biggest motherfucker in this story because he is very much so preying on impressionable teenagers and being like, oh, I'm going to make myself so cool that they are dependent on me. And like, it feels like a big deal to turn me in and rat me out and whatever. Like, obvious. And he also is the one who did the murder. I just like, there's
But it wasn't even him. It was his friend John that did the murder, right?
No, it was him, right? John just helped hide the body. Did I hear that wrong?
Yes. Charles Schmidt bashed her head in with a large rock.
Okay.
And John came back and helped him bury the body when it was done.
I feel like that's going to be an unfortunate theme in this because the name is Pied Piper, that he gets other people to lure others out for him to fucking murder.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't like this.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
Yeah. And I forgot, you guys can go to the next page of pictures too if you want to see the victims while we're talking about them.
Oh, yay. I love that for us.
Yeah.
She was such a cutie.
That literally breaks my heart.
She has the same goddamn cowlick right here that I have that makes bangs fucking impossible.
Yeah, and by all accounts, she was a good student. She wanted to go to college, which was not that common back then for girls. She wanted to go to college and become an oceanographer. She just was a very sweet girl, and she lived with a single mom and they were very close and it was just an incredibly unexpected thing for this family.
Oh God.
So very tragic, very, very tragic. She was actually in bed when her mom left for work because she knew she had to get up early because she had a big test the next morning that she had been studying for. So
sweetie,
she was she was a good girl. She was definitely
a good girl.
And her mom had mentioned, and this will come in later, her mom had mentioned that Aline thought that Charles Schmidt was creepy. She was creeped out by him.
Yeah. Fuck
that's
that.
another big
Obvious.
call. Like,
and she had told,
yeah.
So
See
this
something,
is where
say something, but
your-
also trust
Yeah.
your instincts, girls. Like,
This is where
if you get the ick, like, back the fuck out of there.
This is where, Joe, you might go back on everything you said before. Is she told Mary French multiple times she did not want to go out on double date with her and these two guys. She did not want to. And Mary was relentless.
And finally had to
agreed.
like fucking give in because otherwise you're not going to stop. I fucking hate that shit.
Yeah.
Mary, like,
Just
borderline bullied her into it, in a sense, yeah.
Essentially, yes.
That's literally
Well,
the
'cause now-
dating tactic these days for men is just belligerently ask
Yeah.
a woman until she has to give in because there's no other way they're getting dates at this point. Like, just
Well, this is too. I know this is supposed to be a common tactic predators use. Is they they use
They
other
wear you
women
down.
there's
to be incessant about it.
There's a
And,
fucking
like,
trend on TikTok, by the way, of people like talking about their grandparents' like love stories. Because this one girl started it of like, oh yeah, my grandma was telling me the story of like my grandfather stood outside her dad's grocery store every day waiting for her to like ask her out, and she just finally got worn down and said yes. And it's like, and that's how I married your grandfather at 16, and he was 26. And it's like, Grandma, you literally the video is like, Grandma, you're a victim. What? That's not cute. And multiple other people, mainly women, have come on to say, like, yeah, my grandparents had the same story. It was like, Grandma, no, Grandma, no. You don't get married at 15 and pop out 6 kids by the time you're 20. That's not how that fucking works.
That's scary. I'm actually really grateful now that my grandparents had a fairly normal one. They have a fairly sane meet cute. So I will.
Yeah, they do.
Thank goodness.
Count my
You'll
lucky
grasp at
stars
that,
on that
right?
one.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just doing a little mental thing, and I'm like, oh God, I never thought about this. I hope it's not bad, but nope.
Nope.
Oh.
Not at all. All right. So our next victims are sisters, Gretchen and Wendy Fritz. After he murdered Aline, Charles actually broke up with Mary French, or maybe never did. He'd like to date multiple girls at the same time. So who knows if they ever broke up or
dating someone else. Yeah,
who knows? But he started dating Gretchen. He saw her at a local pool and was immediately enamored with her and followed her home and basically like knocked on her door and introduced himself, and they began dating. Gretchen was the daughter of a really wealthy local heart surgeon in Tucson. So she was like, he was well off, she was very upper crust. She was like way even head and shoulders beyond this guy. But she was a little nutty herself. So they apparently were quite a good match in all actuality because she was as batshit crazy as he was.
Fun.
She went to a really expensive, I don't know if it was a boarding school or just a very exclusive private school, and got kicked out for attempting to take part in an armed robbery.
Oh, okay.
A match made in hell.
Rich kids, rich kidding, you know? God.
Yeah. So they should have gotten along better, but they had a pretty tumultuous relationship. They were very
because it's probably two narcissists wanting attention dating each other.
Yeah, it's too much.
The toxic attracted the toxic.
Yeah, exactly. And there was actually talk of if she knew that he had killed Aline Rowe. Like, nobody searched.
She was attracted to it.
I don't think he's going to stay quiet about that, knowing what we know about him. I feel he's going to fucking brag. So.
Yeah. And where it turned on him is the talk of if she knew about it was because there were people who believed that he got tired of her crazy really quick. And she threatened to expose him if he tried to leave her and break up with her.
That makes sense.
So, there was
he's
just
a bit of a
talk about,
and then she tries to hold over.
Yeah. There was talk about the town of her knowing about it and being like, "Oh, you're not breaking up with me because I'm gonna go tell everybody that you murdered this girl." Don't know if it's true or not. That's just I found it in a couple of the articles that I did research on. That
speculation.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. But needless to say, he was ready to break up with her. So on August 16th, 1965, Gretchen and her younger sister Wendy, who was only 13,
I was going to say she looks like a baby in this photo.
went to a drive-in together in Tucson and were never seen again.
Good.
Yeah, so it came out after the fact that he strangled them both in the living room of his home. Just casually strangled them one at a time. And then stuffed the bodies in his car, drove them out to the desert, and kind of buried them. Didn't bury them that great because, you know, the ground in Arizona is like fucking solid rock.
Yeah, it's packed in dirt.
Yeah. So he got tired really quick, and he got the younger one mostly buried, and the other one just like tossed her in a wash. He couldn't do anything else after that.
Cool.
So,
what a great guy.
Yeah. And the thing about this, all three of these girls is from two different families, obviously, very different circumstances. One a single mother, the other one a very wealthy, well-known family in the community. All of these parents, independently of each other, told the police, you need to look at Charles Schmidt.
Good.
Yeah, because they knew better.
My babies are murdered, and this guy did it. And the police, swore they're all runaways. Never mind that one of them was a very good student.
Never mind one of them was fucking 13.
Yeah. Never mind that she, like, why would she follow her crazy sister and run away?
Yeah.
Like, nothing really added up to them ever being runaways, but they were immediately chalked up as runaways.
And how lazy too, like without even being like, oh, well, we didn't find, like we investigated, we didn't find anything, so we're assuming runaways, to just be like immediately like, oh, well, I don't feel like doing my job today, so these girls are probably runaways.
There probably wasn't even any investigation going on. Like if his family was prominent as well, it was probably like oh, no. We're not going to deal with that hassle. Like, it's just going to cause more paperwork and more issues for us if we try anything. Like, we're just going to leave it alone and call them runaways.
Yeah.
Good God.
And Norma Rowe in particular, she was kind of a badass. So she immediately was like, go look at Charles Schmidt. That guy is creepy as fuck. He came to my house once looking for my daughter. And I told him she wasn't home, and he gave me the creeps, and I'm a grown-ass woman. So you need to look at this guy. And the cops wouldn't listen to her, and she was, like, not swayed. She was, like, doing her own investigation on him. She was talking to people. She was following him in her car at night. Like, she would not let it go.
I fucking love that woman.
She's like, this guy is not right. And my daughter was hanging out with this girl who hangs out with him.
Yep.
It's something's to do with this guy.
2 + 2 = 4. It's not that hard of math. No, because I could literally never imagine what it would feel like to lose a child like that. It's got to be so devastating. But like,
especially as a single parent. Not to say that it's not awful for parents who are not single parents and have other support.
Yeah,
but like,
especially if that's
she was your entire life. You did everything for her.
Yeah,
especially in a time when there was a huge stigma around being a single mother. No matter how you came about being a single mother, like divorce, which was very uncommon, out of wedlock, your husband died, no matter what it was, being a single mom, there was a huge stigma against it.
So,
like, she put so much of her heart and soul into that girl.
Yeah. No, I think she's a badass for like trying to get answers. Like that's, I can't imagine. I can only imagine like that would be, I mean, as depressing as this topic is to bring up, like that is one of my anxiety nightmares. Is like, what would my response be if people I love died? And if anything like this happened, like you bet your ass, like my only coping mechanism is like, well, I'm gonna figure out which son of a bitch did it. So I can definitely understand like deeply, primally that need to be like, if you're not going to do your jobs, then I'm going to do it for you, because like this is not going to be a question that goes down in the history books. Like we are getting this solved. So
which is also
that she had to, but like so much respect.
It's an unfortunately common story too, of like people having to hire private detectives and take things into their own hands when the cops won't take them seriously.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is, you know, my first person I presented in this state to you guys, I was all in. I loved her. Like, I was like, I don't care if she's chopping people up. This woman's awesome. I felt the polar opposite about, like, I just was getting.
Do I even want to do this story? This guy's a fucking awful.
Like,
he's
my
so
skin was just crawling
He's such a creep.
The whole time. Oh my God. It was awful. It was awful. So I'm going to go on to how he was eventually caught. But before I do that, I think I'm going to talk about where this Pied Piper name stuck for this guy.
Okay.
And it's essentially because after he got arrested, of course, the police finally start doing their jobs, and they start talking to people who knew him and knew what was, knew the victims. And those are, of course, all teenagers and people around the same age. And as they're doing all these interviews, they heard from multiple teenagers. Yeah, he did kind of say something. Yeah, I did hear something. Yeah, there was gossip. Yeah, this might have been a thing. And nobody said anything. They just
hear or see something, say something.
Yes, every time.
Oh my God.
They just followed him. And part of it was about, the stories he would tell about the mafia and the Hells Angels and the broken nose and I think a little part of it was this guy's just always full of hot air. He's always saying all these ridiculous things. And so people just, I'm sure enough people were like, yeah, that's just him talking again.
He just talks out of his ass.
Yeah. But there are some people who knew him well enough to probably know for sure that something happened. That multiple girls who knew him and were around him disappeared and were never seen from again. And he's saying he killed them or killed people, but none of them went to the police. Not a single person. Except...
That's fucking crazy.
His best friend, Richard Bruns.
Oh!
Okay, yeah. So now on to how our friend Charles Schmid finally got captured or figured out for these horrible murders. He was turned in by his best friend, Richard Bruns. Richard did not care actually for Charles' girlfriend, Gretchen Fritz. She was not, he thought she was a little bit too wild and too crazy, and he was not a fan. So he wasn't too upset when Charles admitted that he murdered Gretchen. He wasn't feeling too bad about it. He was just kind of like, nah, did you really though? You talk a lot of smack. I don't know if I believe you or not.
Come to find out, it's real.
Yeah. Like, I don't really care that she's gone, so I'm fine with it. But then Charles actually dragged him out to the desert to show him the bodies. And
this fucking guy.
I gotta pony up. He called me out. I gotta show him.
Yeah.
Nobody can think I'm not tough.
He's constantly like escalating it. Like he's gotta get that new high of, people appreciating him, I think. And so Richard started to get really kind of weirded out. And he had a very intense crush on a girl. I forget her name. I didn't even write it down, but he had a really, really big crush on this girl. It happened to be the 15-year-old girl that Charles decided that he was engaged to a couple years before. one of the girls he bought a fake engagement ring for. And she basically rejected him. And so his friend Richard decided that this girl was going to come next on his hit list. Like,
I mean, he might have.
He had expressed interest. She rejected him. Richard has a massive crush on her. He started to get really worried about her. So he ended up turning Charles in. He went to go visit family in Ohio and spilled the entire story to his grandparents. And they immediately called the police in Tucson and put this girl under protection.
Had to go to another fucking state.
Yeah.
Miles away, hundreds of miles away, to report him.
Yep.
Also only reported him not because I saw dead bodies, oh my god, what the fuck, but because, this girl I want to have sex with, she might be next on his list.
Yeah.
And then left her there.
Yeah. And,
well, he actually did not willingly. So his first defense when he was weirded out, he would like patrol her house. He would like stay outside of her house all day, every day until her parents were like, get the fuck out. Like, leave my daughter alone. What is going on?
Because they don't know what's going on. He's a fucking stalker at that point.
Exactly.
I love that his reaction was not like, let me tell her parents why she's in trouble. It's still, let me leave.
Like, I'm not going to go to the cops and tell them, hey, my friend killed this woman and admitted it to me. Here's where the body is. Yeah. I'm not going to tell this poor girl's parents, like, hey, he proposed to her and she said no, and he's killed women, so she might be next. I'm going to fucking stalk her. Third option, I'm going to stalk her instead. Plan C. No plan A, no plan B, just directly to C, because he was probably a fucking C student. Like, what the hell?
So yeah, he broke. It was his best friend, Richard Bruns, turned him in because he was worried about this poor innocent girl that was going to be next on Charles Smith.
He had to be the hero. He needed to save this poor damsel in distress.
Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he still didn't end up with this girl because she's like, fuck that. But at least she didn't die. So
yeah, that's fair.
She didn't die. Police very quickly arrested all three, Charles Schmid, Mary French, and John Saunders. Everyone who had any part in the murders or the covering up of the bodies were arrested very, very quickly. As a matter of fact, the second murders he did were on August 16th, 1965. His trial began by March 15th, 1966. So it was very
quick
turnaround.
I mean, they don't have much else going on in Tucson. Yeah. So what else are you going to do?
Apparently too much to look into this earlier, but yeah.
It was not a drawn out process. Yeah. So they were chomping at the bit to get him in trial and get it going. French and Saunders almost immediately were like, "Yep, we'll turn on him. Yeah, we'll tell you anything you need to know."
Obviously,
but it did take them getting arrested. They never came forward on their own. It took them getting arrested and tied to this murder for them to do the right thing.
I'm being held accountable for my actions. So how can I still not take full responsibility?
Yes. No, they did it. He did it really. And yes, he did. But like you also that does not absolve you of your guilt. So
So really the only way that we have an accounting of what truly happened in these instances is because they finally told the truth after they were caught.
Lord.
And so for some reason, halfway through Alleen's murder trial, Charles Schmid he decided to just plead guilty. They were halfway through the trial. He stopped trying to plead innocent and he's just like, guilty. I'm guilty.
Look at that. They presented too much evidence to say that I'm not guilty.
Yep.
Yeah.
He finally got put into an atmosphere where he couldn't charm people. Out of
the fucking narcissistic tendencies here of I can't just
Yeah.
I can't just bat my eyes and get out of it this time. I can't just play the good old
like,
boy. Like,
yeah.
Okay, I guess I better say guilty. I'll get attention for it still. Like,
to your point, Joe, I'm pretty, like, I could see him doing it halfway through the trial because it finally dawns on him that his charm isn't getting
I'm not the smartest fucking person in the world.
Yeah. Like, it probably took him half the trial.
Not the most intimidating man in the world.
Yeah.
God.
So he pled guilty. He was convicted almost a month and a half after his conviction. June 23rd of 1966, he finally led the police to the bodies because they still didn't have the bodies. They just had
You were convicted. Why did you wait a goddamn month to say, yeah, I'll tell you where the bodies are? Were you trying to, like, lighten your sentence?
No, it's for guys like that, it's a power trip. Like, he needs to always be in control. He needs to always be the smartest and most charming, like, have something going for him.
It was his last thing to dangle over them.
It's his last thing that he
didn't fucking last long needing that goddamn attention, though. That's for fucking sure. There are murderers who last until their goddamn deaths that don't tell people where bodies are.
He's obviously not very good at it.
Not a good thing at all, not condoning that. But at the same time, like, you fucking pussy.
Well, that, and like that, and he had the, like, I mean, he's always, like Amy said earlier, he's always got to escalate. Like, he's got that bragging thing, too. Like, the only reason he did not become a major serial killer is because he had to brag about murdering 3 women.
So to the point where I'm not being believed, I've got to show you evidence that this happened.
Yeah, and well, like, at a certain point, I'm sure it's, like, it's fun to dangle it for a while, and then I'm sure you get the right cop or someone to even suggest that, like, oh, maybe you didn't do this. And then I bet that's all he needed to be like, oh, I'll show you. Like,
probably.
I murdered so many women. Let me just show you where.
Yeah. He definitely was his own undoing. 100%. He was his own undoing. He was actually on death row. Interesting. He was on death row. But the death penalty was abolished in Arizona in 1971 because the Supreme Court ruled that it wasn't legal.
I didn't know that either.
He got his sentence commuted to, I think it was like 50 years to life or something like that in 1971. Mary French got a 5-year sentence for luring her innocent friend out to her murder. And John Saunders got a life sentence for aiding and abetting, basically, the murder and the disposal of her body.
Yeah.
I think Mary should have got longer. Maybe that makes me a bit.
Yeah.
But, like, I think she got it. Like, she should have got at least 15 years, one for each Eileen's wasted life.
Yeah, like, you didn't participate in the actual murder. Yeah, you didn't help hide the body, but you stayed in the car the whole time. And again, you didn't say fucking shit to anybody.
Yeah.
Eileen wouldn't be there if it wasn't for you.
He would have never gotten his hands on her if it weren't for Mary French. So.
She didn't
Because she thought he was a goddamn creep.
Yep. So yes, his sentence was commuted. Although he did try to escape several times, as people in Arizona's prisons like to do, apparently. They really like to try to escape. He was largely unsuccessful. He did get out one time. In November 14th of 1972, he got out with a fellow inmate, Raymond Hudgens, who was also a triple murderer. They went rogue, made their way to a ranch near Tempe and took some hostages for a while. And then they decided that they would be better off if they parted ways and they would be less easy to be found by police. But very soon after parting ways, Charles Schmidt was recaptured and brought back to prison. So he was not out for very long.
Yeah. Do we know if the other guy was recaptured too?
I don't know. I did not get that far into it. But
what was his name again?
I was going to say, we have a mixer coming up at the end of August, so maybe...
Okay, I'll leave it. I'm not going to Google it.
I'll Google it myself for later. But this is your fifth picture is him at recapture, I should say. My friend still liked the costumes. He still liked the costumes.
Dude, that hair is bad.
Is that a wig?
Yeah,
he was wearing a wig
yeah.
because he thought that would help him blend in better and not be captured.
No, my dude, that stands out.
He looks like the guy at the end. He looks like the guy at the end of Psycho wearing his mom's wig.
Yes.
Like he looks batshit crazy. That was his picture of when they recaptured him. Yes.
Yikes.
You're fucking dumbass.
Yikes.
He was back in prison quickly in 1972. And then on March 20th, 1975, he was killed in prison by fellow inmates. Probably had enough of him running his mouth off and talking about how amazing
about everything, dude.
Yeah.
He pissed off the wrong person.
Yeah.
He told somebody who's like actually tied to the mafia about how he beat up a bunch of mafia people, and they're like, "Oh, I'll show you."
Like, you fucker, no, you didn't.
So this is the little bit of justice or closure I'm going to bring you guys. So he was killed March 20th, 1975 in prison. He had 14 to 20 stab wounds. The reason they can't tell is because they were slashing stab wounds, and he was just basically cut to ribbons. He lost his right eye because he was stabbed through the right eye. He lost parts of his kidney. He was just like, they couldn't tell where one stab started and another one ended. They did a number on him. So
good.
I think you're probably right, Joe. Like, that seems like an anger, like, he was running his mouth.
He pissed somebody off.
They could not take it anymore.
A few people, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, wild.
Yeah.
I mean,
Messed
what a
with the
fitting
wrong
end for
gang.
him, though. Because it's like, that's you live this lifestyle of like, oh yeah, I've got to start killing people because I think I can get away with it. But yeah, no, just like this guy who is like, I don't know, constantly escalating and constantly making up bigger brags and then trying to like reach to those brags. Like, it is a very, it's like a movie ending that he gets, you know.
Yeah.
He finally pisses off the wrong person with his lies. Like, everybody is so charmed by him and goes along with it for this entire story. And then his end is like, he finally gets someone who's like, the fuck you did. And just had enough of him.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was my one redeeming part of all this research I did on this guy is like, I am glad to know that. I did not want to hear he walked out of prison as an 85-year-old man.
Yeah.
And retired somewhere, you know? So at least there's that.
Yeah, at least he's, maybe it makes us mean and vindictive, but like, I don't know. Someone like
I don't condone
really
violence and murder and mistreatment of people for any reason. But at the same time, when shit like this happens, like, it's a little bit of justice. It's a little bit of like vigilante justice.
Cosmic justice, you know.
Yes. There's a little bit of you reap what you sow in this story for sure.
That's what I'm saying. Sure. Like, even if it's not like, yes, you can separate, obviously. I mean, we're talking about true crime. We know what we're getting into, right? Like
I don't condone the death penalty, but if you die because you were a fucking murderer or rapist or something, like, you had it coming.
You reap what you sow. Like, I can acknowledge that. And like, it is, like I said, this is a very like movie ending where it's just like, oh, yep, like that is 100% the consequences of your own actions. So I don't actually feel bad for you. Sorry, not sorry.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so what do you think? Tucson, does it make you want to go visit it and see what it's all about? Like,
no.
All I've learned from this is there is so little to do in Tucson.
There is nothing to do in Tucson.
You might stop murdering people.
Yes. Like, I don't know. Either get murdered or become a murderer. Apparently. That's what you do.
I'm sure. I mean, you know, caveat. I'm sure Tucson is lovely. I'm sure people who live there love it. This just does not make me want to go down there, and I've never wanted to go down there before this. So
No.
Other
like I'm good.
than the like college town vibes, it's also like retiree vibes, very quiet, but still not a lot to do. So,
but if you do visit Tucson, it's a very quick and easy tour. It's down the main strip of road and into the desert, essentially. Like this, these are our only two areas of this entire story, pretty much. This is where this guy lived. This is where he spent all his time. So,
go see what that historic boulevard speedway was actually looks like now.
Is it still the ugliest road in America?
Probably.
Exactly. And I do recommend you read the story by Joyce Carol Oates. It's a good one. Especially knowing this story now, like her imagery is incredibly vivid when it comes to just the scene of Tucson at that time and this guy. And it's a very good read. So I do recommend it.
Cool. No, we'll start a podcast book club, and we'll only read short stories because we're already doing a podcast, so I have no time for anything else.
Who has time to read a
Agree,
novel?
Yeah. But I think I can manage a single short story in like a month or two. So
yeah, maybe. We'll
maybe.
see. We'll get back to you
once
on
a quarter. You know.
Yeah.
I'll let you know. 5 mixers from now, I'll let you know if I've read it. So.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, once again, I'm Amy.
I'm Amber.
And I'm Joe.
And this has been Murderous, Mysterious, and Macabre. If you like this episode, please leave a rating and review and consider sharing our podcast with your friends. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like our video and subscribe to our channel. If you like what we do, please consider joining our Patreon found in the link below. Bye.
And that's it. Bye.